Alright, we are live broadcasting some painting today. I'm going to be doing the Crafting Guild, the Tabletop Crafting Guild had a craft off, and what it was is a soda bottle challenge. So if you take a look at what I've got here, this is actually the top of a soda bottle that I kind of crafted into this ruined tower. So this is kind of what I imagine to be the remains of a tower here. So I'm going to be messing around with this and seeing how this turns out. I'm doing just a basic job. This is just something that kind of occurred to me when they said, "Oh, soda bottle." And I always thought, oh, it'd be kind of nice to have like the ruins for a bit of terrain, or of like one of those kind of old school little one of those old school little places where, you know, you have the very oh shoot, now I forgot the name. But the idea is that this is one of these tower domes that you would see, and perhaps, like, you know, I know Russia has the big ones, and you also see them in various countries. So this is going to be kind of something like this. So if you'll notice here, I'm actually using some random Hearst Arts molds that I have. And these are very useful if you're doing any sort of, you know, any sort of crafting that requires you to have like little bits and pieces of stone stuff. So it's very nice to have these around. So because, you know, towers generally aren't made up of uniform stuff, what I'm doing is, for some of the cobblestone type things in the rubble, and obviously if this was like a, you know, true to form thing, you would have a lot less rubble here. Well, I'm sorry, you would have a lot more rubble. I'm saying that, you know, this is probably one of those scenarios where you had a bunch of people cart away most of the rubble that was left over from the tower. So what we're dealing with here is just kind of the leftovers that perhaps some sort of goblinoid race or something like that has set up some walls here. This is kind of like a little lookout type spot. So what I'm doing is I'm dry brushing our little stone here. So this is obviously, in the game I'm going to do, this is a bit of a siege weapon that a giant threw and originally destroyed the tower. So I'm doing a little bit of just regular dry brushing here for that. And I think I'm going to go straight into the military gray a little bit. I want it to look a little bit different than the tower wall stuff here. So we're gonna have like just enough to show that this rock clearly is a different sort of stone than what we're seeing. So if you noticed, I actually have the I don't know how to pronounce it. This is the Dwarven Forge stuff, basically. Now, what this stuff is pretty cheap paint that you can get sometimes on sale. I don't know if I would recommend getting it full price, but I got it on sale, and it was a very good deal. And this is the stuff that I use to paint up most of my Dwarven Forge stuff. And it does need to be shaked pretty crazy hard compared to other stuff. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a little olive dry brush. And this is the same sort of paint format that you would do for the regular stuff. Except, of course, I didn't dry brush the base gray here. That was just kind of false-ish. So we don't want to have this be super thick, but we want to make sure that we're hitting just the edges with this stuff. Applying just a very little bit of it. And if you can see here, I'll show you a little bit heavier dry brush. So you can see here, just hit the edges and that'll stand out and give it just a little bit more texture than if you would have had just a basic gray. Because obviously this is not, nobody's been keeping this up, so this is all going to be rather dingy and awful looking. And I have kind of a half door here that I have propped up. That was a mold that I made, which was kind of screwed up. So I'm going to make sure that we get this. So when you're doing just a project like this and you think you've put on the a little bit too much of the dry brush, you can always just dry brush over a little bit more with the original gray base. So I think this is actually looking pretty good. Even from that level, you can tell this has been exposed a little bit to the elements. So maybe I'll give the outside a little bit more of the olive dry brush than the inside. This little bit of stuff here. I want to try to hit just the edges. Like that. Very good. All right. Alright, that's good with that. Let's go back to our little boulder there and give it a little bit of gray, light concrete gray dry brush. Kind of enhance that idea that it's kind of a real oh shoot. Gravestones. Making gravestones. That's actually a project I've not done. I know that Hearst Arts has a decent mold for that, but making gravestones should be pretty simple. I don't know how intricate you want to go. What kind of graveyard is it going to be? Because you could either, you know, go so far as to actually sculpt some out of, like, you know, maybe some sculpty, perhaps. Or if you're going to want to go crazy, you could make some green stuff graveyards. But just regular old gravestones. Bog standard stuff. What would I do for that? I don't know. I mean, I have a mold made from kind of a base that's I forget. It's for some wargaming base, so I've made a mold. So I actually have a bunch of possible gravestones I could use. So I want to make sure. Ooh, yeah, tips of popples. That would actually work out pretty good. Yeah, you could actually even use an X-Acto knife to make little lettering in them. So you could actually texturize the little tops, and you just make little runes and stuff in them. You could also chip a bunch apart if you were making like a really old gravestone. Off-topic question. Does your game group, which I actually run games for several different groups, so do any of my game groups know about your YouTube channel? I think my original game group in the back when I lived in New York, I believe most of them know, because I shared the channel. I think I told somebody from the gaming group that I'm doing in the local game store. That's the meetup.com group. I think those people know. Because I know I told at least one person from there. But I don't know. Do the rest of them know? I would assume perhaps... I don't know. Probably not. And then the online group, I'm sure a bunch of them know, because one of my latest online groups was a group that I had been trying to promote my channel on the message board briefly. So I'm sure most of those guys know. Oh crap, did I hit 3K? Oh snap, I didn't even know. I knew I was getting close on 3K. I didn't know I hit it yet. I was going to do a video, but man, this weekend was horrible. Like really, this weekend was just awful. My alarm clock... No, I'm sorry, it wasn't my alarm clock, it was my smoke alarm. Started like, I have one of those speaking smoke alarms in my little place here, and it started saying it needed new batteries. But it didn't fully wake me up. So basically, it half woke me up. So I was just like dragged out of like a really good sleep at like 3 in the morning, and then I like woke up a quarter way, and it just kept on half waking me up until I missed like pretty much my entire night's sleep last night because of that stupid alarm. Because it's one of those things where like a voice says, you know, your smoke alarm needs batteries or something like that, and so I didn't wake up fully all the way, and I just kept on doing that. So, whew. So yeah, I was gonna try to do like this whole video stuff today and everything, but it's just an awful day, and I did not start out very nicely. See, it's always what happens with wood. I'm never good at dry brushing wood stuff. See, I think it's a little bit too... Yeah, see, I'm gonna put this light dry brush on here, and then I'm gonna just put a wash on it later on, because that's what I always do with wood. It's just picking out the details nicely. Eventually, I'm gonna have to get a nicer camera, so you can kind of see, you can kind of see the texture a little bit better. But you can kind of see it's just way too light. What up, GXX3? Here's a good one. Favorite edition. If you're talking about... Alright, so the first RPG I ever played was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Second edition is definitely my favorite edition of that game. Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing Game. Second edition is great. The fourth edition is coming out, and they're going to be doing sort of the same thing for that. So I'm super happy about that, and I'm super looking forward to that. For D&D, I have to say 5th edition is my favorite. I mean, I'm one of those guys that, like, you know, was kind of forced into 4th edition, and unfortunately I was not blessed with a decent dungeon master. But as far as I can see, it's been like, it's almost impossible for anybody to run a decent game with 4E, unfortunately. It just seems that way. Now, a lot of people have said, oh, I had really good games with 4E, and it's just like, well, unfortunately, I think that's a little bit more about your game master and less about the rules. I mean, it's just... 4E was, like, legit, like, more about tactical stuff, and it has a lot of really bad gameplay elements which do nothing but artificially increase the amount of time that combat takes. 5E is amazing, though. Combat, I think, out of the box, is the quickest combat you will find in a D&D product. And it's very easy to make it more complicated or less complicated as you see fit for your game. So, I will say 5e is pretty amazing, and I'm super jazzed that I get to run games with 5e. First edition is interesting. Like, I actually have never run a game in first edition, never played a game in first edition. I would like to try one of these days. I mean, third edition, it seemed like it was pretty much the same. I only played like the last edition of third edition that got put out, so 3.5. Yeah, see, I'm trying to mix this up a little bit, so I just hit just the edges. So what I'm doing is putting on a little bit of off-white dry brush here. And this is supposed to be just for the edges. Now, see, you can always... You're dry brushing with white, it's very easy to go too much. See, when you're dry brushing with white, it actually gets easier the longer you do it because there's less and less paint on the brush. So it's less of an issue of you putting too much paint on the edge. So that's kind of when I started on these cobblestones on the side, because the cobblestones on the side are going to be much more kind of rougher than the blocks here. So it makes sense that they would have a little bit more edge wearing and chipping and stuff. Hit a little bit on the inside here. If you can see here, I went a little bit heavy on the little broken door thing, because I thought that was a nice little bit. If you'll recognize, that's actually a mold I made of a secret weapon. I forget what they're called, but the terrain that they had. So that was actually a broken little bit. What colors do you recommend to start out with for painting terrain? With terrain, you're going to need a lot of brown. Yeah, so if you're going to be doing terrain, I would consider just getting the stone, some sort of stonish gray, a lighter gray, and then a white for painting the edges of stones and stuff. So. Alright, and I was a fool because I forgot completely. I wanted to edge a little bit of the little stone here. So again, if you've watched my channel, you know how much I love finding random stuff at the Goodwill by the pound and at thrift stores and stuff. And this is another little example of that. This little stone here is a toy. I think it's part of a some sort of board game, or maybe just a, I don't know, action figure toy or something like that. So I found this at the Goodwill by the pound, and I knew I'd have a use for it sometime. And this is actually going up pretty good. So if any of you are interested in using like old toys and stuff like that, I would definitely recommend getting some sandpaper, because sanding down some of the stuff is pretty much the only way you're going to be able to get the paint to stick properly. That's pretty good. So you can see, even from there, you can see the little boulder that smashed down the tower dome is a different shade than the slightly different shade than the actual stones of the tower, so that's good. And now I think I'm gonna actually do. I think I'm gonna do my little bit of wash here, if I can find my washes. They should be here someplace. Strong tone, yep. Have people ever noticed it? I think the only time people have said anything is when I was using Dreamblade miniatures. And I think the comment was, it's like, you have so many weird miniatures. And that's when I was using Dreamblade stuff. But no, I used the Mushroom House, which was a, Smurf house. And I don't think anybody actually said too much about it. Yeah, no, I even used the McDonald's toys that I turned into like mech suits. And nobody really said anything about it. I got a couple like wargaming people that might have maybe said something. I don't know. It's all been very positive. I don't think anybody's actually said anything specific about it. I'm sure they've noticed it, but like I think the main draw to my games is it's not the miniatures on the table, but it's rather the just the story stuff that I put out there. So this is looking pretty good. I think I'm going to move on to the main dry brush, which is going to be painting the tower bit gold. And I don't know how well this is going to look, but I figure I'm going to try it. And if it works out, great. And if not, I can always repaint it. Because again, this is literally the top to a soda bottle that was cut down and then sanded and primed. So just gonna try to get some decent dry brush in here. And then I might try something weird, like do a little bit of green dry brush. Just try to showcase that it's been weathered for a bit. That might be interesting. I don't know where my brush went. My dry brush that I generally use for stuff like this is I don't know where it is. So I'm using this little cheap natural hairbrush here, which is working out pretty good. This is actually pretty dark, much darker than I first thought. So I might actually go over this again. With some actual lighter dry brushes. But this is actually looking pretty cool. The biggest thing is that you want people to kind of understand what's going on in your terrain without a lot of explanation. So I think this is, even if it's not quite apparent what it is, I think people will sort of understand. I definitely think I did the right idea by dry brushing this and using the dry brush on black method. Because this is Put it inside a little bit. Just enough, so... I'll dry brush a little bit thicker on the outside so you get that little sheen so it looks like the metal's been busted off. Real nice, like. So. Actually, the more I do this, I think that's looking pretty good. And I don't think I'm gonna really need to do much else in terms of I think this is gonna look good enough just with the dry brush of just one color here. I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about doing any more. Ah, yeah. So that's looking pretty good. I could have maybe made the outside a little bit more rougher, perhaps. There we go. There we go. There we go. Very nice. My first mini was an Elven Reaper, a Reaper miniature, a metal elven person, which was pretty good. It was a good miniature to start out on, and yeah, it still is in rotation in my games. Delete. All right, cool. So, I think next is going to be painting the mud. So, definitely I got the mud color here. Oh, wow. Old paint. That's always what happens. Yeah. That is the truth, my friend. So, And then I think I'm going to finish this off with a bunch of flocking, I think. That'd be the nice way to do it. Just get the edges so it's all kind of edged off in this nice, kind of maybe like dull, like kind of like dead grass or something like that. I'll have to look through my flocking thing and see what colors I have for flocking material.
Winds southerly at about 15 with gusts of 25 miles an hour. Barometric pressure 30.00 and is rising.
There we go.
We're about a half inch behind, correction, a half inch ahead for the year, and 1 53/100ths behind for the year so far. We'll be looking for a little bit of a change tomorrow, and of course the possibility of some scattered showers. Today, of course, there's nothing showing up on the radar. However, the satellite photo was pretty interesting for the western half of the U.S. Rain showers and thunder showers along that frontal system. That wide band of fairly heavy snow. Now, what will happen each time that you see the frontal system on there, that begins at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you'll see the cloud pattern move until 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Well, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, there's a lot of games that actually are being played on Roll20. When I was looking to run a game on Roll20, at least, there was a lot of players that were super interested in it. So, online you can do there. All that stuff was available on the Humble Bundle a while back, so a lot of GMs rather would probably already have the books in the online version. So it was a popular thing, back in kind of in between the editions, and I think 5th edition really is. There's a lot of stuff about it that's similar to the Warhammer 2nd edition. So if you want to get into it, Roll20 is an option. The books are cheap online. I believe they're on online drive-through now. Yeah. Hey, good night, G3XE. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, the lore of Warhammer is amazing. I love that stuff. I've been trying to find, in addition to going to thrift stores and trying to find some nice deals on cheap terrain stuff, I've also been going to thrift stores and trying to find Warhammer books. Okay. So, alright then. I think I'm going to get my glue and flock and get to flocking to this. I will be right back. I'm just going to get my flocking supplies. Alright. Oh! Alright. Boppity boppa. Alright, so I've got my little container of Elmer's glue. Elmer's glue, of course. You just have to water it down a very little bit, and then it is good. I've got my big cheap brush that I got from the thrift store, actually. So I'm going to water down a little bit of Elmer's glue and get to work of brushing down all the locales that we want stuff. So now we're going to make our choice. I already know that I want to use a little bit of Gale Force 9. Again, something I got sale on Miniature Market. This is the moss, which looks really nice. And then we got the choice between the kind of the brighter green grass and the steppe grass, which I actually think I like. I kind of want to keep this drab and have like kind of the drabber grass. So we have some army painter kind of drab grass here. This might be a good... It might be nice to have an offset of colors, though. You know what? I'll start putting down some of the green grass, and if it seems a little bit too weird, I will change my mind on that. What I'm going to do is put down this glue wherever I want grass to be. Spread it around. I didn't think this through. I'll have to go grab my garbage can. And I will have to grab that so I can hang this in up. I don't want to waste any flocking material, obviously. So let's see here. We will have to see how this looks. So we don't want to waste any flocking material. Boom. Alright, so we don't want to waste any flocking material, so we're just going to try to do a little bit here and see how that works. Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna be flocking today, so that's why I didn't have the camera set up to show me doing this. There's kind of no point to showing this sort of thing here. So we can see now that actually doesn't look that bad. I thought the flocking material might be a little bit weird looking, but it actually does not look that bad at all. We're doing this super sloppy because, again, I didn't think I was going to be doing any flocking like this, so apologies for that. But I think this is going to look pretty good. right. Showcase a little bit of flocking. And boom. Almost done. Excellent. Let's finish off this little bit on the end here, and then we will probably end this stream because we'll have to wait for this to dry completely before we continue. So I think that is going to be about that. And I am going to be doing a full video if you're interested to know the full process of getting this little bit of terrain situated. There we go. Now I don't know if I want to add a little bit of moss now or not. You know what? I am going to add a little bit of moss. There's a little bit in here that seems a little bit too... Add a little bit of moss to this little area here. See what sticks. There. Poke a little bit of glue in there, and we'll have a little moss on the inside. It is going to look super messy right now, but that's fine. Because it will look better once the glue has set and we can just brush away the flocking that we don't need / want. Excellent. Very nice. So, I would like to work on this more, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to let this completely dry before I can work on this more. So I think I will have to end this stream and bid you all a very nice night. There we go. Excellent. Well, I think this actually looks pretty nice. D&D. Yeah, see, this is one of those things where because of my horrible pronunciation of everything, it's either going to be D&D or D&D. And I say D&D, which means I say it so quickly it could actually be either. I've been using D&D in my descriptions and whatnot because that's the Twitter hashtag. So yeah, so that is looking pretty dang good. So I think when this fully gets dry, I think this will be a nice little piece of terrain. And I could probably use it for a crashed meteor as well. Very nice. All in all, I had a really fun time doing this, and hopefully, I can't wait to see what else the other members of the Tabletop Crafting Guild have done with this craft off. I think this was an interesting idea to use a soda bottle, and I can't wait to see what everyone else is going to do. So you all have a very nice evening, and you guys have a very productive, excellent week.